In 1964, Reverend Bob Ware was called as the founding pastor of Church of the Master. Arriving in July, he set about the task of securing a place for worship at nearby Laura Dodge Elementary, and then knocking on doors of houses in the area to invite people to the new church.
So he was starting this church from scratch, and that's hard work, but he did it, and he went door to door. He had help. The a number of other ministers in the presbytery wanted this to succeed, so they helped him. They knocked on doors too.
In 1964, my family moved to Sunny Slope, and as my mother says, not long after, Bob Ware knocked on the door and invited them to church. And that's really how we got to PCM.
The first service was held in November of 1964. Later, 160 people became charter members in April of 1965 as the church was officially born. By the spring of 1966, a capital campaign was underway for a new building, and ground was broken in September. The first worship service in the new building was held on Easter Sunday of 1967. Despite an infusion of members when Trinity Presbyterian closed, Church of the Master struggled financially and from some member division. Ultimately, Bob Ware would take a call from a different parish in 1969. The Reverend J. Keith Cook arrived to be the congregation's next pastor in January of 1970.
Soon after I got there, the officers of the presbytery asked to meet with me, and they wondered how in the world we could continue because we were so behind in our payments, and they thought it would have to close probably.
Arriving to financial challenges and slow member growth, things began to turn around under Keith Cook's leadership.
And I decided that people needed to either laugh or cry or learn something they enjoy knowing in order to feel like they've enjoyed worship. And if one of those three things happen, one or more, they'll tell their friends about it, and they'll invite their friends to this church, and they'll be back themselves. And that formula was one I used all through my ministry. And that made a difference too. People were laughing and having fun. And I discovered that if you have some fun in there, then people, well, the way I always say it, when they're laughing, they're listening.
As the 70s progressed, Church of the Master began growing quickly. The casual style of worship was appealing to the many young families in the area. Worship services were full, and Sunday school classrooms were packed with young children. Discussions about a building expansion had started. Unfortunately, on Memorial Day 1978, tragedy would strike.
I got a call in the middle of the night from a police officer saying, "You might want to know your church is on fire." And so I ran over there, and sure enough, it was on fire.
Just so upsetting. I remember the chair, we had the folding chairs, and that they had kind of a vinyl seat cover, and they had just melted.
My mother was on session, so she got a call that Memorial Day, so we went up to the church, and we just couldn't believe the devastation the fire had done on the building. I had taken my camera, and surprisingly, a couple of those pictures still are around of the damage and the faces of the people standing there in disbelief.
Despite being devastated by the fire, members rallied together and moved forward.
And the Holiday Inn manager called me up and said, "We're your neighbor, and I know you had a fire, you got to move out. You can come and use our ballroom till you can get back in." So for 6 months, we had our worship services, except a time or two we had it out on the church lawn. But other than that, we had our services there in the Holiday Inn's ballroom.
But it was interesting as a late teenager to observe the congregation coming together to deal with it, to deal with the fact of the fire, to deal with next steps, and to make sure that we moved on and continued worshiping, even if our space was damaged.
While members worked to rebuild the fire-ravaged building, they also started a capital campaign to build a new sanctuary. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, 1978, worship was held in the rebuilt church. 1979 would bring two things. Reverend Mary Hanson would join the staff, thereby becoming the first woman pastor hired in the presbytery. In August, the new sanctuary addition would be completed and opened for worship.